I welcome all of you on YourPedia Education. And as you know, on this channel, I keep on showing you my interaction with the technocrats, academician, industrialists, students, those who uh, give us some kind of inspiration through their own journeys. And we get to know many things. And this is the channel dedicated for those activities. Now, in today interaction, I have interacted with Srikar Vulli. He's I'll say he's my batchmate from IIT Delhi, and the person with the very ordinary starting in the beginning of his life, and then the way we keep on proceeding in life and keep on exponentially growing. That is the journey he has in his life. Very humble fellow, and we should be proud to be technocrat in India because there is limitless growth opportunities available to all of us despite of the fact that we make very humble beginning. Let's say we started doing our diploma or polytechnic, and then we did graduation from ordinary college, then we started doing our graduation from masters, and then masters from very good college, and then PhD abroad, and then very good universities, very good corporate companies abroad, and doing marvelously good in our own domain abroad. So this Sri Karka story is a typical story of that type. He made a very humble beginning as doing polytechnic from a very small town near Vijayawada, and then did his graduation from there, and then landed up in IIT Delhi for masters. And when he was in IIT Delhi, his imagination got fired, and he got to see that okay, there are opportunities. And during that time, it's you see early 20s, early 2000. Towards the end of 1999, last century, or beginning of 2020, he landed up in a job of TCS, but found there that he is not doing anything technical. Then he went abroad for doing PhD, and then there was no limit, postdoctorate fellowship, and then presently is doing very good technical job, which I want you to listen. The crux of this entire story is, this is the story of all of us. Wherever you are, you can identify yourself with this story, with the only difference that do you have that imagination or motivation to pursue a great career. And not only you can do good to you, but you can do good to the nation also, because that is our strength. And we as technocrat can give really good name to our nation if we are working in those kind of areas. So as I keep on telling, engineering is not a national basically profession, it is a global profession. Technocrats, our science, our English, our mathematical aptitude is respected entire the globe, different countries. Wherever technocrats have gone from India, they have done marvelously good. And Srikar is a typical example of that. So I would like you to listen to this and get inspired and pursue career, something like that. So let's go and listen to what Srikar is to say.
Hi Srikar, thanks a lot for coming on my channel, YourPedia Education. Thanks a lot for this.
Likewise, Dr. Vijayendra.
Yeah, and Srikar, I'm really thankful to you for this. And I also want to tell our audience that you are my classmate in MTech. So we did MTech in the same year. You were in design, I was in production domain. That is IIT Delhi. That is 1999, 2000. We did that. So I'm really very glad to interview here and interact with you, Srikar here. Thanks a lot for this.
Thanks a lot, Vijayendra.
Okay.
I hope I can call you Vijayendra because you're my
yeah. Yes, surely. Yeah. That helps.
So likewise, I'm also glad that we've been in touch like this. So that's
Srikar, I'm running this series of interaction with all the people around the world who can be role model for students in engineering in India, and you are a typical example of that. So I know that you started from very humble background, and now you are at a really good place in engineering. You started your journey, and you have done even polytechnic. Which many of the students after 12th, they go for degree. You did polytechnic also, and then you did your graduation, you did your masters, you did your PhD, and now you are at a very good place. So this journey, I'm very sure, is going to motivate many of the youngsters back home. So this is the purpose of my interaction with you. So my first question normally is about the personality. So I want you to tell about yourself to all of us here within a couple of minutes.
Yeah. uh, pleasure. So just uh, tell about my background. I come from a mid-sized town from the state of Andhra Pradesh. It's called Vijayanagaram, close to Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. And I was born and brought up there, and I did my schooling in Vijayanagaram. And then after that, I did my polytechnic. That was for about 3 years. And then straight after my polytechnic, I did my bachelor's BTech in mechanical engineering. It's a 3-year course for people with a polytechnic background from this college back then called Koner Lakshmaya College of Engineering. That's close to Vijayawada now. It's one of the top deemed private university in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So I was pretty good at my academics in bachelor's. So I was a topper in my university. And after bachelor's, I took this GATE examination, and then I ended up in IIT Delhi to do my MTech. So that was about my journey of academics in India.
Okay, so how difficult was it to actually come from polytechnic to graduation? How difficult was that phase?
I think it was quite a kind of a challenge for a person with a background like me. So I was from a small town, and information technology wasn't so developed like now. So whatever we get information is from friends and someone with the experience. So our world is pretty limited back then.
Right.
So my objective was to get into a kind of a job just after my polytechnic and support my family. But every time when I go into that particular education, you know, end of the education, for example, in polytechnic final year, my thought process was that whatever I was planning probably needs to be stretched a bit beyond. And actually, I think that that's a pretty right direction I moved in.
Okay.
So
Okay, Srikar, like this, what I feel is in my life also, like joining masters in IIT was a turning point, and that was the best decision I ever took in my life to go for masters and institute like IIT Delhi. So I believe that IITs and best institutes fire the imagination in you, and then they give you a lot of dreams. So what is your take on that?
well, that's a pretty good question to say. I think every step is a turning point. When I say that when I got into this college, Koner Lakshmi of College of Engineering in '96, and I realized that my exposure was pretty limited in polytechnic. Then my targets, went up, and I wanted to get into IIT, and then I did pretty hard work in my bachelor's and got into IIT. And you're right that once you land into IIT, it gives a lot of confidence. I think on the flip side, it also gives you some kind of arrogance.
Yeah.
That could be attributed to your age or your
Age also,
exposure or whatsoever, and you seem to be like in a false image that you are privileged now. So
Okay.
yeah, I think, but that was I
To some
definitely
extent, that is true. Also, you are privileged. And the moment
yes,
you join,
yeah,
once
yeah.
you are part of IT daily, you are actually, yeah.
Yeah, I think that now the curtains are raised. Your world is much wider because that's the gateway for your career, right? So
Yeah.
IIT is a definite turning point.
Mm.
I would say it's biggest turning point.
Okay. So
Yes.
when you were pursuing your masters, then what was the dream or ambition you kept for yourself? Job or higher education or what?
During masters, again, whatever we see around people, and I wanted to get into a highly paid job. But again, at the same time, the other compromise was that I wanted to get into engineering field, not to compromise with the software trend.
Yeah, because I
Uh,
remember that time the main companies which used to visit. I remember because we are in the same batch, so I remember TCS, Infosys, Wipro. They used to struggle. First campus placement companies used to be these companies only.
Exactly. That's the reason. If you just roll back a few years before we did masters,
Yeah.
and top research institutes like DRDO, ISRO,
Yeah.
and public sector companies like BPCL,
Mm.
IOC, These were the first choices for the candidates because they were the highest paid.
Yes,
They were
yes.
paying like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
4,000, 6,000.
Mm-hmm.
But when our batch started, that was, I think, kind of a dot-com bubble. And then your salaries, which these public sector companies were giving around, I think, 8,000 or something like that, that wasn't attractive. And then we were feeling as if our complete lives would be, uh, uh, ended up with slogging in these companies. And private sector companies like these software, or for example GU, are paying 4 to 5 times back then. So they were not even our bucket list back then. So that's what I mean. Then we wanted to get into jobs, and what should we do to get into a job? So we picked up these subjects, and we picked up the projects which can give us like tools to get into jobs. I think that was I can't blame, because that's what we know back then. But over a period, when we evolve, and when I lived abroad, I realized that that was not what I should be doing. So I should have thought much uh,
Okay.
in broader sense. Yeah.
Okay. So Shrikar, what from IIT Delhi? What did you get from IIT Delhi? Which jobs and what opportunities you got from there?
Well, yeah, I would say I was one of the top students in my class. So I was the first in the, just after your second semester, because you haven't finished your third semester. So most of the campus interviews, they're based on your CGPA. And then my CGPA was around 9.4. That was top in my class. So I was quite confident that whatever, I mean, company comes first, I can just take that, and after that I could also go for off-campus jobs. So actually, that's what I did. The first company that came into campus was Infosys, but I was quite reluctant. Probably you remember that.
I
every time it was TCS, but Infosys came first, and I think they picked up 70 people or something like that. And
yeah, yeah, everybody.
and then yeah, and then yeah,
Including me, including me. So
you were there. Okay, that's good, good.
I also got that.
Yeah, then
Because
I
it was the first company and they used to give you shares and it was so lucrative that everybody will say, okay, we'll not wait for the second company, we'll take this one only. That is how
but
it
but
was.
but then there is another hitch in my case. So people were in this impression that Infosys doesn't have CAT CAM CAE division. So anyway, I wasn't so interested in attending
Okay.
interview. So
Okay.
I just went casually. We were just joking with friends. Anyway, I didn't get it. Then the second was TCS, and they pick up people like a truck. Back then we were calling truck.
Everything. Truck, Tata
Yeah,
truck. Tata
Tata
truck.
truck. Yeah, exactly. Comes and take people, and
They'll take it. Yeah.
I think they took like around 130 people,
Yeah, yeah.
and they promised me that they would put me in mechanical engineering division. So I was quite happy, and then I attended this interview, and then they gave this placement. So, but that did not stop me to not to search for jobs outside. And GE established their technology center in '98, and there was a ex IIT professor from chemical engineering. He was one of the founding members of that JFWTC in Bangalore. And then he came and gave a very nice presentation. GE was like a dream job back then, and then we were aiming to get into GE by hook or crook. So, and then to just parts of our senior batch, they joined in a company back then. It was called Engineering Analysis Center of Excellence, which was a joint venture between Tata and GE. So that was a kind of a compromising point. So I applied for this position from outside through my seniors, because there were a lot of these IIT people going and joining, and they arranged for an interview, and I got a placement in Eco as well. So it was like having two jobs, and just after that I also attended one job in Altair Engineering in Bangalore, but their position was back then based in Germany, but I didn't have any experience, so they didn't offer me. But they said they were opening another office in Bangalore, and they wanted to know if I would like to consider that job. So I had another opportunity from Altair Engineering as well. So in total, I ended up with three jobs. And when I think it was in the end of my project, I went to meet Professor K. Gupta from Vibrations Design Group, and he said that one of our ex IT student has a company in Hyderabad. It is an acoustics company, and it's called Indo Infotech. I don't know if it still exists, but he said he was looking for someone with your background, and he said that just take my letter and go straight to Hyderabad, and you can join if you want. So I had literally 4 job opportunities straight after my MTech.
Great, great. That is makes them possible,
And
right?
then
Great.
I ended up picking up TCS,
Mm.
a truck.
Okay, so you took the TTS, and where your truck landed up? Where you went?
A truck is quite a funny experience.
Okay,
I was put into this 3 months training in Trivandrum and
okay,
given a lot of these, unicorn dreams.
okay,
And that, you will be put into mechanical engineering, whatsoever. And the guy who sent me from Trivandrum to Mumbai doesn't know where I will be placed. And when I arrived in Mumbai, they were pushing me to work in National Stock Exchange as a consultant from TCS. That
Mhm.
was like heartbroken moment for me, and
Okay.
I straight away said I'm not going to work here. And then the guy said, okay, if that's your choice, then only the option we have in Mumbai is that go to Malad, and they had a CAD CAM division there. I went there, and it seems to be a bit dodgy for me there because they didn't have much work. There was not much career there. So I asked the head of the department not to take into that division, but I asked him if he can send me to another division in SEEPS that was called PLM, Product Life Cycle Management. And he sent me to that division where I ended up working for about 2 years, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. I mean, that was a programming job, and a lot of my friends who continued in that career, they're earning maybe fourfold than what I'm earning now. But my choice was to get into engineering, and I did not stay, and I pursued my PhD straight after that.
Okay. So how long you worked in TCS?
About 2 years, from 2001 March to 2003 January.
Okay,
Yes.
so Shrikar, when we did our masters, that time masters we used to join, and it was used to be said like a lot of opportunities from there. Jobs also and other opportunities also. Like everyone, I think on an average were having 2 to 3 jobs. Like you mentioned four,
Yeah.
because you were towards the higher side of the academics. So majority
Yeah.
used to have two jobs and all. Now presently, students fear getting into masters courses. I don't know the reason for that. In India, that trend has come up. Like they fear whether we should join or we should not join. What is your take on that? Higher education, what is your take on that? I mean, job after BTech and job after masters, what is your take on that? What do you would
I
like to
think
say?
uh, I think the main problem with our kind of cultural brought up or whatever, we study to get a job. I think, right? I
Yeah,
think that particular mindset has to
to change.
change. Exactly. And we always pick up, I mean, I heard a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
People saying that, oh, why do you want to do an MTech? With
Mm.
BTech, if you join, you get another 2 years experience
Mm-hmm.
in, for example, in TCS.
Mm.
In a way, it could be true, but, education is something that everyone has to upgrade no matter what. It gives you extra
That's
buck
true.
or not.
That's
So
that's true.
doing a master's is
Mm-hmm.
is a completely worthy in my case.
Mm-hmm.
And
Correct.
I wouldn't, I mean, if I had to do the same journey again, I would still pick up masters
Same.
because it take academics as academics. Don't link it with jobs or money. No way.
Jobs anyway you will get it, and career
Exactly.
anyway they will go. So 1 2 3 years does not that does not matter.
Yeah.
It later on you can pick it up, I think.
Exactly. And another good point is that I think I see in the current generation that kids are really stressed.
Mhm.
That's because we have really competitive world in India. I mean,
Mm.
I don't deny that we probably, if I am there and if I'm in the current generation, I would be doing the same thing. But there is a threshold for that. I think
Mm.
don't push your, you know, efforts beyond that threshold. Then you will get into a lot of mental health issues,
Yes,
and
yes, that's not.
it won't make big changes. For example, if you look into my friends in my bachelor's, I was topper in my bachelor's, and there was another guy who was like 40th, and he also settled pretty well. So there are increased number of opportunities in India, and
Okay.
increased, yeah,
So you should be relaxed and just
exactly,
enjoy. Just do your
yeah,
job. That's it. Nothing to worry.
yeah,
Whether you are number one or number 40, you enjoy the same career later stage. So
yeah.
just to be relaxed and keep doing whatever you're doing. That is
And
has to be like.
upgrade your qualification as
Yes,
much as you can.
possible.
Don't look for benefits now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they will definitely pay you back. That was my experience.
Yeah. So Shrikar, after this masters and then your job of TCS 2 years, then how come this PhD thing came to you? How this that?
Well, as I said, I was in TCS for 2 years programming, and yeah, quite a handsome salary. But I wasn't quite happy that what I was doing. I wanted to get into engineering field.
Mm.
So my links with IIT, Professor BC Nakra back then, uh, and then he was quite a motivating factor behind my choices. So we had an informal talk when I went to IIT Delhi to receive my graduation certificate in 2000 August, if you remember.
Yeah, I
We
know.
had our
I
graduation
know.
ceremony,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was
Convocation, convocation. You know.
yeah, in convocation. Narayan
Mm-hmm.
Murthy,
Yeah,
he
he
came
came.
from Infosys.
I
Yeah.
remember.
So, and then I went to have an informal talk with Professor BC Nakra, and
Mm.
he suggested me to look into the UK universities because my interests were in structural dynamics and vibrations, and
Mhm.
that's what I specialized in my MTech with
Mhm.
Professor Nakra and others.
Mhm.
And that was the motivation factor to
Mhm.
look into the direction. I wasn't quite happy with software, so I
Mhm.
wanted to do a
Mhm.
PhD.
Mhm.
So
And you know, Shrikar, you went to University of Sussex, if I'm correct, right?
yeah,
And then you worked in cylinder pressure reconstruction using neural network, if I can
yes.
tell you that. So how come this is from TCS? You were working in non-technical and then suddenly into and especially neural network also. How this all combined?
Well, I think that's a good point to raise because once you do PhD, don't actually limit your interest to one field.
Yeah.
So when I went to Sussex, my interest was to do some specialization completely in vibration and structural dynamics.
Yeah.
But then when I went to Sussex, actually I realized that no, I need to be more flexible because engineering. I mean, when you pick up engineering field, it won't exist as it is because it needs other fields to support.
Mhm.
So neural network is a kind of an emerging tool in modeling techniques, and my
Mhm.
PhD was predominantly a mix of measurements
Mhm.
and modeling,
Mhm.
modeling in both in numerical modeling sense, also
Mhm.
using neural networks. So
Mhm.
neural network was kind of an emerging field
Mhm.
back then, almost like 18 years ago. And
Mhm.
my professor, he explained me what it can do, and I think then I realized that what happens if I mix my interest with this new technology. I think that was a pretty very good choice. Even now I'm using neural networks in my current today's work.
Okay, Shrikar, like getting into University of Sussex, you know, some competitive exam you have written, or it is only through the reference of your Professor Nakra and your academic background that you could get admission there.
Back then it wasn't quite a matured like now. I probably I'm not 100% sure about the admission process in the UK now. Back then it was more through like writing to faculties
Okay,
and showing your interest and
okay,
looking at their responses.
okay,
And back then there was something called overseas research scholarship,
okay.
and that was paying the difference between home tuition fee that was meant for the UK and EU nationals, and overseas tuition fee that was meant for third countries like us.
Mhm.
So that was about £10,000 for us and £3,000 home tuition fee for UK nationals and EU nationals. So ORS is some kind of privilege that the
Mhm.
UK government was giving, and universities they were seeing you ORS as a kind of a first filtering criteria. So once you get this ORS, some universities they were paying the home tuition fee as well as they also give you some kind of maintenance bursary every month. So that's what I received from Sussex So while picking up this ORS, we had only one university choice, and I was in a very typical, safe mentality that if I apply through Cambridge, there would be quite tough competition. Maybe I should try with the next level universities, and I applied through Sussex. That was a mistake because this whole
So
ORS.
you could have got it in Cambridge also. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes,
Mm.
that was a big mistake. Actually, because I didn't receive ORS through Sussex, Cambridge professor said you actually violated the first filtering criteria, so we can't support in other funding point of view. So that was a kind of a bad decision. But then I think after 2 years they stopped the ORS also. They actually introduced something called EPSRC, Engineering and Physical Research Council of UK. That's called EPSRC, and primarily that is meant for EU and UK nationals. I remember that if the professor is a bit more influential in these universities, they can even get Indian students. And I have one junior coming from Pune, and she joined in our group with this EPSRC scholarship, which is much more lucrative than what I was getting. So they paid tuition fee. On top of it, she was paid like £13,000 a year, which was very, very high salary back then. I was getting only £5,000 a year. That was a bit, you realize things when you land there, you don't know. So you would really like to tell these things to your friends and all. And I actually recommended these to a couple of my friends. And one of them, they even got it admission in Loughborough for his PhD. But he was a bit scared. Again, this false misinformation about okay, a lot of my friend's friend did PhD and he didn't have any job.
Yeah, those kind of
That's not true.
rumors.
That's absolutely not true. If you do a PhD in engineering, especially,
You'll
don't
get
think
job.
about job.
Yeah.
You will get.
Mm.
That's
I don't know. I don't know. There's so many fears, so many rumors. Like whenever you are to think, at least think positive. Why to think negative and make strategy?
Exactly.
Think positive and make strategy. That has
Take
to be
risk.
there. Mm.
Take
And
risk.
take risk. And there is no much risk also. It's a calculated risk. See, doing PhD in engineering, I do not consider. No, I am PhD. You have done PhD. We understand. This is the degree which will feed you anywhere in the world. This is the degree which
Exactly.
will feed you. There's nothing to
Yeah,
worry on that.
in the worst of the worst, you can be a faculty in an engineering college.
Every corner of the world, any village, there are colleges.
Exactly.
So it will feed you. So even Srikar, you want to come back today and go to back to your village, you will get job. This degree
Yes,
will give you. That is how it is.
exactly.
That is.
Think like that. So that was always my intention. If I do my PhD, well, I'm secure with the whole life. It's an insurance
True.
policy. Not just that it's making money, but I'm also fulfilling my interests, right?
That's true. That's true. So can I say like when you graduated, after that in masters, and then you landed up in job, and then you went abroad for PhD. You became financially self-dependent. You did not take anything from your parents. Am I right in that, Srikar?
Not even a single penny. In fact,
Yes.
in
You
return, I
gave back.
supported my friend. Yes.
Yes,
2 years I worked in TCS, and that gave me quite a lot of savings. I was quite, I'm from conservative background. I'm not a lavish guy. Saved quite a lot of money. Send money to my parents for their three years maintenance. Until then, I did my PhD, and even in my PhD, can you believe I saved quite a lot? And I even bought an apartment in Vishakhapatnam. That
Great.
saved
Great.
me. So money is not a criteria. So
So,
I'm sure-
Srikar, I'm sorry to cut you short, but tell me, like I'm interviewing many people who are doing PhD abroad and who have done PhD abroad, and it takes 3 to 4 years. I don't know how much time it took you, 4 to 5 years on an average it takes. Like so, during PhD, wherever you do, whether UK or Europe or US, it is possible to save money, and that money which you save is equivalent to something which you can earn in India, and that is possible during PhD. Am I right in that?
well, it's actually true and a bit hard to say true universally. But definitely, if you do your PhD in the UK, I would say that if you're not self-funded, if your fees is covered, and if you're given a bursary of some X amount in the UK, you can easily maintain and you can save money. But then when it comes to mainland in Europe, I think in Germany they were giving back then 850 to 900 euros. That's a pretty decent bursary for PhD, and in the US it was pretty low. I think around 12 to $1,300, and that's okay. But you can't do anything extra outside your PhD in the US. But in UK you can do quite a lot outside your regular PhD, unless you get this EPSR. See, and then in Germany also you can do some jobs, but it varies. But that's what I wanted to highlight. I don't know why our students never look into Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Sweden, in Norway. They pay PhD students monthly salary as equivalent to what a guy in industry gets, which I never knew it. Actually, if you remember, I mean, one of my, I think our batchmate, he's from applied mechanics. He was going to Norway. I think after working for 1 year in TCS, I met him in Pune, and we have this false impression that Scandinavia is full of ice and all. That's not true. And he made a very, very smart move. He contacted, I think, one of the professors in applied mechanics, and has good contacts in NTNU in Norway. And he applied, and he showed me his offer letter. I was thinking, like, typically we always wanted to go to US, maybe UK. Rest of the places are shit. But that's wrong. And he made a very smart move and a very right decision. And he was paid almost like 3 to 4 times of what I was getting in my PhD in the UK. And then the standard of PhD in Scandinavian countries is pretty high, if people have to think of it.
Okay. So Scandinavian countries, you mentioned Finland, Norway, these countries, Denmark countries you mentioned. So is scholarship also good there, or what is the criteria? Why you said there are good opportunities?
Well, I need to differentiate. Scandinavia involves only 3 countries: Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Finland is Nordic. Finland, Iceland, Faroe. They come under Nordic region. So, but they synonymously they use as Nordic. But when I say Scandinavian countries, these 3, I don't know much about Finland, but it's not as good as Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. But I can definitely say that in Sweden, and Norway, and Denmark, the people, PhD people get around close to. I mean, I can talk about Denmark, 35,000 Danish crowns, which is 4 lakh rupees a month.
Great.
Yeah, and then of course the expenses are also proportional. But if you are a bit conservative, I think if you're a single and student, maybe
you can save up to 1 lakh. You can save up to 1 lakh.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you pay a lot of tax on top of it, but still you save a lot. You even pay for a pension in these 3 years. So
Great.
I would say that people need to look into Denmark, Norway, and the quality of these PhDs is much higher than a lot of US and UK universities.
Even there are opportunities, right? There are opportunities for students there.
That's the beauty of Norway and Denmark, because there are not many universities in this place. If you look for engineering universities, they're top of the top. Technical University of Denmark, and then University of Southern Denmark, Aalborg University, and Aarhus University. They offer engineering degrees or PhDs or whatsoever, and the quality of that is like unbeatable. I'm telling you. And because there are only 4 universities, innovation is a very, very highly respected area in these countries, and most of the companies are working with only these 4 universities. So if you talk about a professor, he knows at least 10-15 people in the industry. So he can easily refer. And what I saw in Denmark is that most of the jobs you get are through references. I think 60% of the jobs. So if you're picking up your PhD with a right professor in Scandinavian countries, don't worry about job, because they are directly linked to the companies. So that's that you need to forget it.
Great. Okay, Srikar, you had experience, like you did the PhD from University of Sussex, and then you had experience in Loughborough University also, and then you went to postdoctorate fellowship. For that, you went to Technical University of Denmark. So I want you to tell your experience in these universities also, like your postdoctorate in Denmark and Loughborough University.
Well, after PhD, I was looking for a job, and getting a work permit in UK is pretty hard back then. And the only easy place where you can continue to be living in the UK is just join a postdoc. because universities, they have some special work permits. So I was looking, I mean, because I finished my PhD and my visa expires in another 3 to 4 months, and then I need to find something. So I was looking around, and then I was applying all possible jobs. And then I received this position in Loughborough University as research associate, which is equivalent to postdoc. And then I started working in this, termite structural modelings. But it wasn't quite technical that my background could support. It's more of thermodynamics and looking at the structural aspect of it. So I wasn't showing much interest. So I was trying to explore more, and then I applied for a postdoc in DTU, Technical University of Denmark. And then I interview happened, and they invited me to come to Copenhagen in Denmark. I came here, and they liked my profile. It was quite an interesting thing I did in DTU, modeling the structural dynamics of a welding machine, and making some measurements. And then that's the end of my academic career before I landed in industry. But one thing I tell the generation is that get your hands dirty, do a lot of experimental stuff. Don't think of just of software. If you are particularly into engineering field, get into experiments. Do a lot of things. I mean, learn to do some electrical stuff. Learn to do some carpentry stuff. Learn these things. I think a lot of jobs I do in wind turbine industry, it requires some kind of knowledge with the hands on, and we are really, really poor from Indian background to do these things.
Okay. Srikar, like after PhD, normally the normal choice is academics and teaching jobs and all. You landed up in industry. So how it is easy? I mean, this is a very a rumor among people, students, like after PhD, the only opportunity is for teaching and higher education. I want you to tell something about that.
No. That's not absolutely not true. Especially in engineering, it's not. It's not true. There again, it depends on which field you do. When I looked at a lot of my friends, Indian friends, doing their PhD in biology and genetics and all. That's quite a good field, but to get into industries, that's a really hard bit. And I saw a lot of my friends ended up in universities as faculty or whatever. Of course, when I look at mechanical engineering, when I look at production and design, to be honest, sorry, I don't want to offend, but production is when you do PhD in production, it's a bit narrowed down.
Yes.
But design is much more wider, because you almost touch civil engineering stuff and structural and civil engineering, I'm telling you, and controls. These are the most preferred areas, and mechatronics. That's coming now in European countries these days. So that I would say that it depends on the field, but don't live in this false impression that you don't get a job. You will get a job. So it's about how you maneuver your career.
So Srikar, what presently we want to know about your present position, present designation, present job profile. Where are you presently? Yeah.
Well, I'm working for Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy, primarily into offshore wind turbine research and development department. But I came from the same background when I was doing my postdoc in DTU. And Denmark is a place of wind turbines. I think the wind turbine industry, you could probably say that this is a world innovation center for wind industry. So they're quite advanced in doing research and development of wind turbines when compared to any other country in the world, compared to US, Germany, or whatever. Denmark is miles ahead. Most of the standards comes from here. So when I was doing this PhD, I started reading the local newspapers. Then I was looking at these white 3 fans, and I was like, what is there? Just 1 stick and 3 sticks? No. The industry is as complicated as aeronautical industry. We get a lot of experienced people from aeronautical industry, because it involves quite a lot of aerodynamics. And then, that actually kind of induced some kind of interest in me when I was working in DTU. I applied for a position in Vestas Wind Systems. They're number 1 in the world now. And then I was taken into their R&D, and then I just liked the job. and then I continued my career in wind industry for the last almost I would say 13 years now. But in between, I was working for a consultancy which was working both offshore oil and gas structures as well as wind industry. So I'm pretty much into wind industry in the last 12 years, 12.5 years.
Okay, so you are into this. So presently you're in Denmark only, right?
Yeah, I'm working in a place called Skolen. It is in Greater Copenhagen area. So,
Great, great. So more or less, Srikar, we have interacted and have got more or less great informations which I wanted from you. And now one of the last question, which not question, but one of the last thing I want to ask you is like any suggestion you want to give to the students back home in India? Anything you want to tell
uh,
them?
well, definitely. I mean, open your wings and look in more directions. Take risk, and don't be ever be. I mean, don't ever be content with what you have when you want to do something else. Okay, and Europe is much bigger and it's growing, and there are a lot of innovation and opportunities in Europe. Don't look into these traditional places. Look beyond and up. I mean, yeah, take risk. That's what I would say. And then do. I mean, go with your heart. Okay, don't do things because someone else is doing. I mean, saying you to do things. So that's actually we miss
So the
in
best, you are the best example, certain things which we can learn directly. I mean, there's so many things we can learn from you, but one thing like you told like these are the countries, Scandinavian countries we should explore. And the second thing, like after PhD, yes, industries are open. These are the two things.
one more thing I would like to say, I mean, if you can afford, I mean, traveling to Europe is not as expensive as it was.
Yes.
Going to Delhi from my hometown in return, that's costing around 15-20,000 rupees. But in a budget timing, you can make your visit to some of these universities. So I mean, I'm not saying that everyone should do that, but if you can afford, you make an education tour. I've been to Cambridge. I have a very good friend working as a faculty in Cambridge, and I visited him a few times, and he showed me how the rich kids from China, India, they come to Cambridge as an academic tour, and they show all these places, and then they get explored to all this. I think a lot of our people, they can afford, and I think instead of spending on a holiday tour, use it as an
An
education.
academic tour, educational
Exactly.
tour, yeah.
Come to these premier institutes, look at them and learn things. You get lot of motivation. So I think
Okay, okay. Shrikar, like when you are saying they should make the academic tour, are you talking about the engineering students or any school students?
anyone, I think
Okay.
I would suggest that plan from something like high school itself. If your parents are listening to this, they should actually make a holiday trip, but don't just limit to visiting, dream places like Switzerland or whatsoever. Take them to, for example.
No, actually, I was thinking like suppose somebody is in third year, final year of his graduation, or maybe masters. Then MTech student visiting some universities and then interacting with the professor. Is that possible? That is what I was
That's
thinking.
I tried bringing a lot of these students, but I think there is political, what do you call, discontinuity there. So it won't happen because culturally they don't have this exchange program unless you have some exchange program like a DAAD, like what
No, no.
bachelor.
I'm saying if some student on his own wants to come and visit and meet the professor of his domain, like suppose I'm doing masters in design, and here I identified that this is a professor in Cambridge. I would like to do PhD under him. Is it possible to visit that place, as you said, academic tour, and meet that professor also? Is it possible?
It's subjective, actually. It depends on the professor also. A lot
Yeah.
of people are quite
Yeah.
safeguarded. They don't want to take risk. But there are a lot of people who, I mean, if they don't need to financially fund you, why would they bother? You can just come and sit in the lab and
Yeah.
learn things. I think, yes, it's quite a possibility. And I think with the current trends, I can see that India is getting more and more significance. And I
Yeah.
can see that the relations between, for example, India and Denmark have warmed up. And I mean, it could even happen at the a higher level where if there is a political will, they can have these exchange programs like Erasmus programs. Most of the European universities have. They can exchange students. So if there is a political push,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
it can be
I mean
done.
I've seen that Vijender, you interviewed AICT director. Probably
Yeah.
you should give an ear to him. Like, why don't we look into this direction? Because it's not that our Indians lack ability, but we need some kind of tuning that is missing. People are quite clever. I've seen a lot of Indians coming here, but they don't come with the right mindset. That needs to be tuned, I would say.
That's right. Great, Srikar, Shred. This is a great interaction with you, and I'm very sure students are going to get a lot of motivation from your experience and the new niche market like Denmark and all, because very less people know about this. Very honestly speaking, even I was not knowing much about this. So when people think of abroad, they think of some countries like US, Europe, maybe Australia, New Zealand, but not the Scandinavian countries, which are the best. Even
They're
I have.
quite innovative. I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at the top wind industry is based in Denmark, pharmaceutical industry is in Denmark. If you look at Danfoss, they do they're the top, pump makers. Sorry, thermostats and all this, and Grundfos, they're pump makers. FL Smiths, cement company. I mean, there are a lot of these. We never knew that, right?
Yeah, that's true. So Shrikar, now to end up, like many of the students, when they will see this video, they will feel like interacting with you. So is it like possible for me to share your email ID or something if you provide me with some students who are really thinking of some having queries from you? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's pleasure. I mean, I'm always here to guide people. I used to do a lot, but I think after family put up and all, the responsibilities change. But I used to do this quite a lot.
Yeah, whatever you can do, whatever time you can spare, that will be great for the students, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's my pleasure. I do that.
And thanks a lot, Shrikar. Looking forward to interact with you once again. And thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Vijayender, and have a great day. And speak to you sometime.
Yeah. Thank you, Srikar.
Take care, Vijayender. Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Same.